All right, welcome back to part two, part two of this episode of Social Distillation, where we're just winging it. I don't know what we're
yeah,
doing.
yeah. A little bit
I
more
don't know
white
what we're doing.
lightning here. We talked about some stuff with our book series that kind of bled over to things we could talk about in real life social issues. We might end it with a little fitness. I've had some thoughts on some
Yeah,
stuff.
I had some follow-ups on one of the things I kind of ranted about last time that I
Okay,
wanted
yeah,
to get back into. Speaking of white lightning, the blackberries are coming in nicely this year, so I need to find time to
ooh,
go down there and get them in the still.
nice. I tried to get a blackberry bush going, and I bought the thing, cut it down, and nothing is happening. So I think I got a bad batch. But the peach trees are doing very well. So we'll see if we get a good batch in the fall. Uh, the green beans are all plant and they will not produce green beans, but they are made of afro out of my garden. So we'll see what happens there. What was the first thing? Oh yeah. So we were talking about women hitting men in the book series, and
Mm-hmm.
The character in the book was when we get into her own head, she was trying to kind of nudge him in the right direction
Mm-hmm.
with what was better for him. Well, that immediately, because the great thing about fiction is we can always tie it to things that are happening in the real world. And we just had the Johnny Depp trial here recently, and the verdict is out as of yesterday that she is responsible for the payment in the defamation case. And I've seen everything from 13 to 15 million. Now that number is probably going to change over time because you're going to see sorry, dogs went crazy, which means one of the dogs is walking around the lake out back. But you're probably going to see that change with appeals, and she's going to have an assessor come out. I don't have that kind of money, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So oh shit, it just started raining. Where did that come from? All right,
No, we had big storms here last night.
it's probably the same system then, because it would have had to have come from the north, because I'm looking south and there was nothing in front of me. Okay, but back to that. It's probably the number amount's probably going to change, but the social implication is the precedent is set, which is, to me, and maybe it's me being a man and the patriarchy, but it was a precedent that needed to be set. Because the whole premise of the case was she came out with accusations against him with nothing to back them up, and they destroyed his life as much as it could be destroyed as a celebrity. I mean, obviously first world problems, but he lost millions and millions and millions of dollars in possible acting gigs in that town because of the accusations. And as we saw through this whole trial, there really wasn't a whole lot behind it.
Is Hammy playing with his giant chunk of wood?
He is still eating that log. Yes. For those that watch both episodes, or for those that don't, my dog brought in as a chew toy a log from outside, so he's been eating that under the desk.
Back to the seriousness of I've brought up the Rageaholic channel before, and he talked along similar lines. A couple of days ago, he released a video on the verdict, and he made the same point of not just in the US, but throughout the West, throughout Western Europe, the court systems have long overcompensated on the side of women when it comes to conflict, especially familial conflicts. And I did not know this, but you remember the nut job that went and shot up this summer camp on an island off of Norway, and he released this manifesto, Anders something or other.
No, I don't.
This was years back. This was like 2011, I want to say, but I did not know that for years his father had tried to get him away from his mother, who was a drug abuser, possibly sexually abused the kid when he was 4 years old, and had made comments about killing him because she didn't want him.
Mhm.
And despite all this, he could never get the kid away. Now he's still responsible for his actions, and he's super duper evil because it was a kid's summer camp. And the kids he killed were all like 10 to 12 years old, and it was a lot of them, because it was an island in a place where, you know, there's no Second Amendment. Even a lot of the police don't have weapons. There was no one to stop him. But you can certainly see how this kind of trauma helped shape his warped and evil mind. And it doesn't matter how many of these examples you point out, the courts still inevitably err on the side of women in the case of civil disputes, especially familial disputes.
Well, and especially in this situation, it's because, I mean, it's a product of our own making to some extent, because we are physically bigger and stronger as men than, again, overlapping bell curves, all the standard disclaimers, but in general, men are bigger and physically stronger, and they are able to wield that power. And a lot of men in the history of intimate relationships have done so. But women do things a little differently. And we hinted at this before with what is the, I think it was in the book series, so it wasn't in this series, that examples of women's manifestation of psychopathy is different because they tend to use men to do their bad things, whereas men just do the bad thing. And that's why it's so easy in an abuse kind of relationship to automatically say man bad just with the accusation. But that's a problem. And what we did is in this case is there is now a precedent set that you actually do have some burden of evidence. You can't just destroy somebody.
For most people, the precedent has been set, but there are still believe all women lunatics out there saying that this is a travesty and a miscarriage of justice. And I don't remember which nut job it was who said, you know, something along the lines of, if a rich white woman can't get justice, if an abused rich white woman can't get justice, then what hope do BIPOC and LGBTQ people have? You clearly did not pay attention to any of this. One of them, I don't remember where I saw this one, but there was a tweet from a freaking journalist about how he didn't follow the trial. But then what the hell are you commenting on? You're a so-called journalist. Perhaps you should do some journalism.
Some
I was trying to
investigative journalism. How about that?
Yeah, I was trying to make up a word and it didn't go well. But
all right, Bush.
Yeah, you again, as we're saying, the reflexive idea is, oh well, she made an accusation that was serious, and you know, why would she lie about that? So obviously, this is a travesty and a miscarriage of justice. In her own words, she's on recording saying, yeah, I hit you, but I didn't punch you. Stop being a baby. Yeah, I threw a bottle at you. Go tell someone, see if they believe you. No one's going to believe you. She's on tape saying this stuff.
Well, and I think this is where we got distracted here. Where I say we, I'm speaking as the collective United States population, or anybody following it population, was that tape wasn't about her hitting him. That's not the issue here.
Yeah.
Because he could have at any time said, I'm leaving you because you're hitting me. And if a divorce proceeding happened, then that would have been part of the evidence. But it's the fact that him doing that, leaving her because she was abusive, caused her to make a baseless accusation.
Yeah, it caused her to retaliate.
And that always hanging over his head was more important than the abuse itself. Point a gun at me long enough, I'm going to just tell you to shoot eventually. And
battered woman syndrome can be battered man syndrome too. It's going to manifest differently because women, as you said, women abuse differently. Men abuse physically because they're bigger and stronger.
But let's look deeper into this whole thing though. They've been recording each other since like 2013, since the beginnings of this.
Yeah.
And they've been trying to, as of the evidence of the case, and again, there's probably things that we don't even know as of now, but as of the evidence of the case, she was recording to have something over his head, and he was recording to defend himself from that. And that's a shitty relationship to begin with.
Oh yeah, not remotely healthy. And as bad a person as she is, as
disturbed. I'm going to use the word disturbed.
Yes.
It's not. Let's not use evil or good or bad.
That's what I was getting at. You can still look at this and objectively point out that she's in the wrong here, and all the people defending her are stupid and wrong. But you can still feel really freaking sorry for both of them. These are both damaged people.
Mm-hmm. Well, and this is we had this debate with gun laws earlier. Well, this is kind of a civil version of what I think I was trying to get across, and maybe it might make some of those points a little bit different in people's minds as well. Is we have a legal system and we want it to be as good as possible, even though it is flawed, and we're going to be constantly working on that.
Right.
And as men, no matter how much you try to do the right thing, there is a percentage of the female population that is going to have this disturbed state. And what she, according to the psych that was in charge of that investigative interrogation, she's borderline personality disorder and histrionic. So for those that don't know, those are cluster B personality disorders, like we talked about. They're very closely linked to narcissism, Machiavellianism, psychopathy, sociopath tendencies, and borderline. The base of that disorder is a fear of abandonment, an extreme fear of abandonment, to the point that you perceive things that aren't there in that bend. And histrionics tend to make the world a mountain out of a molehill. Everything is just this extreme, crazy, life-ending event, even though it could be something minor. So he could have said something just like, "Oh, you left a dish on the counter," and she would have picked the dish up and threw it at him, saying he's always trying to make her barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen. That would be like something like an example of the histrionics. So both of those combined, she's afraid of the abandonment, which we saw in the recordings.
Yeah.
Because it was, I was just trying to help him, when it was, you're not answering me, you're not ever coming back, you won't talk to me, why are you going to this other house? And this over the top reaction. So you can see how those two things were going to feed each other. You can also see how the way we've behaved as a society for the last several decades is going to feed into that, because we have created a couple of generations now where the world revolves around you. I mean, just take the absolutely inane and infuriating statement of our time, your truth. The hell? No, there's truth. And then there's not truth. There's true and there's false. We used to take tests on that. I guess you can't have that as a section on a test anymore, because you're going to trigger someone. All right. So everything is so relative that you can have your truth.
how are you not going to have an explosion of narcissistic personality disorders when you are making the entire world revolve around these children who then grow up to be adults who think the world should still revolve around them?
Well, when we brought this up before, the best data suggests that our personality makeup, when we talk about the big 5 personality traits, is about 50 to 60% genetic and perinatal. Then after that, the other 40 to 50% is nurture, right? That's a big gap. Like if your set point is like 40 out of 100 on extroversion, but you're raised in an extroverted environment, you may end up 80.
Yeah, like the example we used when last time, I don't even remember what we were talking about, but the a dandelion is 70 something percent similar to us genetically. That 30 something, that 20 something percent makes a big effing difference.
Yeah,
right.
Sometimes you feel a little off with that, the way nurture takes you, but you still have those tendencies. Well, when we look at, I hate to use the word disorder, that's why I used the word disturbed earlier, is because we all have some narcissism in us. We all have some hysteria in us, histrionic hysteria in us. We all have some psychopathy in us where we can detach from empathy to handle a situation. We all have a range of that. And so some of that is beneficial. If I can detach from emotion to make a good decision, like we talked about with gun control, when we talk about gun control, talking about having an adult conversation, we got to not think about the 19 dead kids for a second, because that just makes me angry.
Yeah.
That just makes me depressed, and it negates all good conversation. So we have to have the ability to have that, a little bit of that. We have to have some narcissism, because sometimes we need some look at me to accomplish something, especially if we're in a leadership position.
Yeah.
Right. So we have to have these ranges of emotion, but there is a point in that range where it's pathological. And we need a legal system that protects us from those in that pathology. And right now we have a disturbed individual. He's an addict for sure, with Johnny Depp.
Oh, yeah.
And he's also a very detached artistic personality, but also seemingly a very nice guy. When he's sober and he's doing his thing, he's seemingly kind of a pushover by all accounts. Well, that's very much an attraction for the other kind of personality, because they want somebody they can hang something over their head, but at the same time is a pushover most of the time.
Yeah.
And when they're not a pushover, they can pull out that baseball bat and say, hey, I've got this on you. You better get back in place. And so we do need a legal system that protects us from that small bit of disorder. It's not their fault. I don't hate her. It's not. I actually kind of look askance at the parents and be like, "What did you do?"
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's Hollywood too, though.
Well, that is,
she probably had addicts for parents, and
have the parenting, and then you go into an industry that feeds that, that exponentially increases the feeding of that narcissism, because if you're a bankable star, then the world does revolve around you.
Well, yeah, and your life actually depends on how liked you are by everybody else. And so we've talked about this with social media, is we've kind of expanded. It used to be collectively kind of quarantined to these industries that required that: politics, entertainment, in that area where it's being popular is actually the goal, because nobody wants to go to the movie with the actress they've never seen, right? The actress that doesn't stimulate their own emotions. So it attracted that kind of personality. But now we have it on our fingertips every day. We're subject to the likes we get. Luckily for us, hopefully, I don't know about you, I can speak for myself, it doesn't bother me that we only have 48 followers. I mean, it'd be cool if we had more, because I think we have something good to say, but I go to bed at night not going, oh my God, why aren't we exploding? Why don't anybody like us? So, but I guess to the point is that's not the way most people are thinking. And especially the ones that are being raised in the social media era from a young age.
Yeah.
I look good today.
Well, as we've said, there's someone who hasn't had a good ass whooping, and it shows. Is we've had to take lumps, and we've had ups and downs, and dealt with real life. So the fact that a YouTube channel we do on the side mostly for our own cathartic release isn't catching on, it doesn't destroy us, right? It's not something that we obsess over. It's just another thing.
It's actually just two old guys just kind of getting it off our chests, really. Just, to me, that's stress relieving.
Speaking of old guys ranting about things, you had another comment on the female perspective and society.
Okay, so I did see follow-up to this after I saw the original thing. So for those that are going to bring that up, I know it exists. I also know the timeline, and they did it as a response to the response they got from this. So I'm going to bring up the original. Talk about body image and all of these things, and love yourself, and Jordan Peterson's feud with Sports Illustrated now, and Cosmopolitan. This is healthy when it's
clearly
400 pounds of a 40-year grave, pretty much. And I saw this, and it was a underwear ad. Share screen. Look at the top, look at the bottom. This is the same company. Yes, there's different brands of underwear, but it's the same modeling company. On the top, if you're just listening, we have very much all shapes and sizes except what you would think of as a model. Maybe all the way on the left, maybe. And then on the bottom, these dudes are ripped. Guy in the middle, stage prep ready, man. It's just the double standard of body positivity with one gender and then not the other. It's an interesting double standard. It actually goes hand in hand what we're talking about. The double standard with physical abuse, when the female hits the male versus when the male hits the female. And standard disclaimers, I'm not saying hit a girl. I'm saying you girls probably don't hit your dude either.
Yeah. Well, and if you do, it's because you don't understand what he could do to you if he was the kind that would.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason. We talked about this. You brought up what Jocko Willink's comments was on the Will Smith slap. Is there's a reason guys don't hit each other, because then they're gonna get hit back.
Mm-hmm.
And guys can do some damage even if they don't know what they're doing.
Well, it's there's a lot of things wrong with it, because not only are they going to do physical damage, but it's going to ruin everything, including the family. So let me kind of put some qualifiers on that. So a husband and wife with 2 children, and the wife continually hits her husband, and one time he can't take it and he jacks her in the face, and he's twice her size, and it does real damage. There is no more family. Those kids are going to be the ones that suffer. She's going to suffer momentarily, but the kids are going to be the one that suffer because their dad's going to jail. There's probably going to be a messy divorce involved with it, because once that starts, she has to follow through. There's so many implications just beyond the punch. And for you young guys, it's the same thing in the club, guys. A lot of times when that older dude backs down, it's not because they're scared of you. It's because they don't want to ruin their lives over a stupid kid getting in their face.
Mhm.
It's just not worth it at all. So this is a lesson for all those situations, but specifically the double standard. There's this idea that women can't take the emotional burden of seeing beautiful models wearing the underwear, but men can. And I'm not saying men can't. I'm saying it's a standard of low expectations.
Let me share screen.
Okay. Oh, did I not make it to where you could?
You've probably seen this.
Oh, by the way, in the search term to get that picture, so much disturbing stuff came up.
This is Barbie. Throughout the years, she has been the center of much controversy because
Oh, yes, I
feminists
have seen
claim
this.
she represents an unrealistic, unhealthy, and unfair standard of beauty, leading to a crisis for young girls and their self-esteem. This is He-Man. Now, there is a bit of a false equivalency because boys and girls are different. You
Oh,
know?
that's the whole point. There is a false
Yeah.
equivalency. Yeah.
But it's not to say that boys aren't immune to that. They aren't as susceptible and react differently than girls do. There's also something to be said for toughening kids up and giving them something idealistic to look up to. That's the whole point of ideals. That's the whole point of idols and hero worship, is to have something, even if it is logically unattainable, but you still have that as a far off goal.
No. This is something, because I didn't think to bring this up till you just said it. Global steroid market, 8.6 billion. Let's see, 13.8 billion in 2018, 17 billion by the end of 2025. He-Man doesn't affect men.
Well, and you brought up the models. Is you really think The Rock looks like he does just because he's really good about eating clean and hitting the weights? Really? He's bigger and buffer than he was in his 20s, and he's like 50 now. And you think that's all natural? You think these guys that get, ripped for a Marvel role because they got to go shirtless, you really think that's just because they're really good about eating wild rice and, skinless chicken breast? Or do you think maybe there's some HGH in there? You think maybe there's some other stuff in there to help them? Because as we talked about with the Amber Heard thing, is your livelihood depends on how much people like you. Your livelihood depends on how good you look. And there's going to be some insecurity there as well of
Here's the best example right here. Now go back, if you're watching this, and see who this is, and look at the timeline between those roles. Your body does not change that much.
No. And one of the reasons he got the role for Batman, which I believe was that second one on the top,
yeah,
is because how much he impressed what's his face. I just had a brain fart on the director's name. British guy. Anyway, he impressed him so much with his dedication on The Machinist.
This is not a Wheel Time episode. Weight. Scott's not going to correct us.
Yeah.
he's not going to help us with the answer there.
He got the role partly because he impressed the director so much with his dedication to lose all that weight and look so skeletal for The Machinist. Yep. But it was also a concern of, can you bulk up in time for shooting? Well, you can if you have some help.
By the way, to lose that weight to, what was he, 110 pounds or something like that?
Something like that. It was freakish.
And he's my height. He's about 6 foot. So that's almost 100 pounds less than I am. 90 pounds less than I am. He ate an apple and a can of tuna a day for a long time. That was it.
Harsh.
That's dedication. You give him props for that. That's dedication to your role. But how much damage did he do to his body?
Yeah.
How old do you think he is right now? Probably 40.
Probably.
So we had this rash of actors and famous people dying in the mid 2010s. You know, Carrie Fisher, Tom Petty, all of these Prince, that all in a row, and everybody was like, "Oh, it's the worst year ever because of all this." And I'm like, well, these are all the people that were doing coke and basically not sleeping, drinking and doing coke, not sleeping in their early 20s, because that was the height of the 70s star era. And it's like, yeah, they're all dying of heart failure. That's what happens.
And you managed to live through it and get sober, so you didn't die like Belushi or Farley or whatnot. But you didn't get out clean and free. That took a toll.
Yeah, what people don't realize about heart tissue is it doesn't regenerate like other tissue, and that's adaptive. That's something that actually is adaptive, because if you get a tumor in your heart, you're dead, and you never hear of heart cancer because of this phenomenon. But if you destroy that tissue, guess what? It's gone. There's not a whole lot of healing that goes on there.
So what's this? You turned me onto a podcast I listen to from time to time when I have time. It's a Scotch and fitness or something like that.
Oh, Strength and Scotch.
Strength and Scotch. And the coach on that made a point in an episode a little while back that if you crunch the numbers and you think about it, you don't need to eat that much more for a bulking phase, because you can only put on about as much lean mass as you can lose fat mass, which is only
that's actually saying a lot, because the thought in the industry is it's about half. So
and his saying, and you know, he always provides data. That's the kind of guy he is, you know, you can only lose 1 to 2 pounds of fat per week. And you can only gain about 1 to 2 pounds of muscle per week. The caveat there is healthily, naturally and healthily, which is kind of what we're talking about here with the dangers of what men are doing to look like He-Man.
Sorry, I was confused for a second because my screen started telling me something weird about the meme I had up, even though we don't have it up. And I guess it was Google telling me I still had that open.
So, and, you know, this isn't just dirty old men who want to, you know, want the good old days of our Victoria's Secret catalogs to come back. But, you know, this is, you don't have to be a fitness professional to point out this is not healthy and you're setting bad examples and bad precedents. Now we might get banned again because I'm on the CDC's own website here. But body mass index. No, it's not perfect, but it's a good basic.
I'm overweight.
Yeah, it's a good, exactly. That's why it's not perfect, but for most people, it's mostly good because we live in a bell curve. So it's a good rule of thumb. And then, you know, if you train the kind of people Sam trains, you're going to need to look at other numbers and do other things.
Well, and I would like a society where we do shift that number.
Yeah,
because
that would be nice.
Sarcopenia is responsible for billions of dollars of medical costs every year, and sarcopenia is a loss of muscle mass. So I would like a society where we tried to get a little bit.
It is a major concern for, if you read any literature about training senior populations, that's a huge concern, is loss of muscle mass, because that leads to a loss of function.
What's a misunderstanding about nursing homes too? Because people think of nursing homes as where people go after they've been sick. But no, the number one cause of being in a nursing home is it's basically your 1 rep max to stand up.
Mm-hmm.
It's a loss of muscle mass to where you're becoming immobile without help. The second one is cognitive decline.
Yeah.
And illness sometimes accelerates that process, but it's not always the cause. So it's the best analogy I've ever heard on this was one of my mentors, Bill Eminette, Dr. Bill Eminette. Now, he would talk about your muscle mass like a bank account, and I expand that to bone mass as well. And there's so many years in your life you can build this up, and then it becomes a maintain, and then it becomes slow the decline. And the more you have built up, the longer you're going to be able to maintain, and then the slower the decline is going to be. And realistically, we all want to die of natural causes. That's what every human being wants to do, and we want that natural cause to be something in our very old age.
Yeah.
You know, go ahead.
Well, and this body positivity nonsense, again, there's a difference between not, being a warped individual like me and having, hypersensitivity to your body image and being hypercritical of your body and being overly positive. Okay, you should not be positive. You can feel, healthy within your own skin and still recognize that you need to change something about it. So by the CDC's definition, BMI of 25 to 30 is overweight. BMI of 30 or higher is obese. And we've talked about the whole host of health problems that go along with obesity. And where am I going? There we go. That one. The US obesity prevalence was 41.9% in 2017 to March of 2020. And there was an increase. By the way,
this is the definition of first world problems.
So from 1999 to 2000 through 2017 to March 2020, prevalence increased from 30.5 to 41.9%. During the same time, the prevalence of severe obesity increased from 4.7 to 9.2. So the estimated, this one's a good one too. The estimated annual medical cost of obesity in the United States was nearly $173 billion in 2019. That's cost that you pay people.
Well, and we talk medical reform. I would like to see this addressed before we even broach the subject of private industry versus government, because I think we would see a huge alleviation to the population if we can reverse, what was that, 99 to 2017? So 18 years, if we can flip that number back around, and the prices are still through the roof, then guess what? It's the companies. If we don't do anything and keep getting worse, then realistically, it's our own health. That's the problem.
And do you think you're helping or hurting the situation with this? This is what beauty looks like nonsense. Do you?
Well, and this is where Peterson went wrong. As big as he is, remember I complained about his Dawkins interview. Because he tries to over-explain himself to be so precise with his speech. As big as he is on being precise with his speech, he used the wrong word. He said, "This isn't beautiful. I don't care." He should have said, "This isn't healthy."
Well, yes and no, because the primary concern is this isn't healthy. And when you look at an almost 12% increase in obesity rates over the last couple of decades, that's a big effing deal. But he
made it an aesthetic argument versus,
well, there is an aesthetic
argument.
There is an aesthetic argument to be made, because, and I understand where he's coming from. I do agree with you that
I understand where he's coming from, but he knows better that his public persona is going to be used in a certain way if he doesn't use the right words.
The more important point was going to get lost in that argument. But as a psychologist, I understand where he's coming from, because if you say big is beautiful, well, statistically, to most people, it's not. I'm sorry. That was a main part of his point was Statistically, you can look at all matter of survey data and find that no, for most people, big is not beautiful. And if you're going to narcissistically be a stick in the mud and say, I'm not moving, I'm beautiful, all right, fine, but understand that a lot of people are not going to agree with you.
Well, no, that's actually contrary to the point. It's not real, but it's contrary to the point, because this is actually a subject I wanted to get on, and this is like the perfect opening on it, because the comments around the Sports Illustrated model, the person on Cosmo, all of those things, and then social media in general, is I saw this on one of our mutual friends' Facebook today, where they say something and then everybody piles on with their support. And we hear this, you're so brave, right? Oh, you're so brave for coming out as trans. You're so brave for showing your body even though it's not healthy. You're so brave, you're so brave, you're so brave. Is it really brave if everybody's going to come out and just empathetically support you? Is it really brave? Or is the brave thing to say, come out and say, look at me, I've made bad choices in my life and I'm going to get my body right? Because then everybody's going to come pile on and say, no, don't shame yourself, don't do this. And they're going to say something contrary to what you said. And it's not really brave anymore. There is no bravery in it. What we've created is a society where we don't know what people are telling us is true, because everything's public and everything is celebrated. We're bringing up this voice. Oh, it's so lovely, it's so great. Do they mean what they said? Or are they just saying that? So we've created this whole environment where nobody knows what anybody actually thinks. And that is toxic. Not to use a word loosely that I hate. That is toxic, because I can't tell what you think about me. How can I actually adjust myself to be a productive member of society if I can't tell what anybody's telling me is true? And that person that's so brave for getting paid a lot of money for being on a Sports Illustrated cover is not that brave, because she knows ahead of time she will be supported in this. And anybody that says anything like Peterson said is going to be put through the ringer by her supporters. And that is a narcissistic environment. You got something you're going to bring up?
I'm trying to find, I can't find that particular image.
So while he's looking for it, the moral of the story is, if you want to make a positive change in your life, look for the people who are going to be supportive in the actual steps to the process than the ones that just try to make you feel good about where you are in that process. By the way, I have an anecdote if you want a story from the gym.
Yeah, go ahead. I can't. Oh gosh, these are even worse than the cover photo.
No, when I had 2 employees, and this is actually when I started having cameras in the gym, because it sure would have been nice to say, let's consult the cameras. But there were three ladies. One of them is the culprit. Another one was an enabler. And then the third one was the one who actually really needed the help. She was severely high on the BMI chart, like severely high. And really, when she came in, she tried really hard. You could tell she was insecure, but she tried really hard. And we were trying to motivate her to get consistent and get a pattern going, and then adjust nutrition interventions, and it was very early in the process. But the culprit in this was her friend. And I remember when she was in all by herself without the other two friends, and she kept quizzing me and one of my employees on the other girl, the girl high on the BMI chart. And at a certain point, you could tell she was trying to get us to say something wrong. And again, this all goes back to the Amber Heard thing. She was trying to get us to say the other girl was fat, or she was this, or something, some word or some series of words that could be damning. Hey, take that somewhere else, dog. Is that really loud coming on your side?
Yeah.
Okay, hold on.
So what I was looking for were the photo shoots of this new girl in You. They're even worse than the one cover shot I found. And the point was, this was on purpose, because they could have chosen swimsuits that
Well,
were,
he thinks I'm playing fetch. I'm going to lock him out of here.
that were much less revealing and much better suited to her body shape. They didn't. They purposely chose skimpy garments that show off cellulite and rolls. Let's call it what it is. She has fat rolls and cellulite, and that's not healthy. She's clearly not at a healthy weight. All of that excess fat is going to cause all manner of health problems for her.
I was gone for a second, and I only caught half of that. Are you trying to get us banned here?
Maybe a little bit.
Because this goes along with my story here, because this girl was trying to get us to say she's fat. And it was in a way that I kept answering is like, well, I mean, I'm a professional in the health industry, and y'all came to me to help to lose some weight, and it's my job to encourage her to do that, because that's the first problem in the situation. And you know, we can't worry about anything else till we get a couple lbs off. And then fast forward weeks later, she came in with an entourage of other people, and it was accusations of, we try to make people feel bad, and we fat shame, and we do this and we do that. And I had one of my coaches there, and I'll admit, I made the mistake. I tried to kind of play both sides, try to defend my coaches, but also had good customer service. I should have just defended my coaches because I knew better. And that was my mistake. But it was one accusation after another. But then it shifted, because the coach that was there was like, I never did any of that. And this is exactly what I did. This is what I said. And so it shifted. Everything was about the coach that wasn't there. And it was like, well, this person can't defend themselves. And, you know, he threw weights at me and and all this stupid stuff. And I would just so much wanted to be like, well, let's consult the camera, because we could have the so that's why I had started having cameras in the gym. But it was the fact that it was using this person that needed help as a weapon to get her way. And that's what this whole movement is. These people that actually need help are being used as weapons and shields.
Well,
when we'll bring the psychology we've been talking about, it's doing it in a way that makes them think that they're actually getting helped.
But this is why I get so infuriated with these, you know, the Tess Holidays and whatever this girl's name is that I forget on the Sports Illustrated. If you're going to come out and spew woke nonsense about plus size models and beauty comes in all shapes and sizes and all this other nonsense, I'm going to treat you very differently than somebody who comes to me as a client or a prospective client looking to get healthier. Because I respect you for making that first step and putting in the effort, for not making the excuses. I'm not going to sit here and call you fat. But I am going to point out, good, you're going to feel a lot better when you start losing some of this excess weight, because that's just a fact.
Mhm.
And you're going to be healthier along with feeling healthier once you start to lose this excess weight. Now let's create a plan and make it happen. But if
let me add some genuineness to this, because where I always get in trouble with clientele is I'll do the same thing on the other end. It's like, hey, you might be working out a little too much. You might be over dieting too much. There's dysmorphia on all sides. Don't take those steroids because you're big enough, King. I don't delve into the bodybuilding figure model scene because it's not any healthier than being fat.
Yeah.
And so it might even be less healthy. And these bodybuilders are going down in their 30s now, 30s and 40s.
The damage you're doing to your body is probably, and I'd be interested to see if there's any literature on this, it's probably more easily reversed if you're just a couch potato than if you've been actively stressing your body in improper ways.
Well, I don't even need a study to go back to what we talked about earlier, because in some of these extreme dieting steroid situations, you're damaging your heart. And that's different than getting excess fat or your endocrine system or something like that is recoverable. Even a fatty liver you can recover from, right? But your heart just doesn't recover the same, which is why I'm big on this cardiomyopathy thing with certain things. It just doesn't adjust the same way everything else does. And again, for great reasons, because if you got a grain of sand sized tumor in your heart, you're dead. So that's a good thing. Not that you get the tumor, it's the fact that we really can't because of the way it is. But we have to account for the other side of it. So it's this I hate to use the word systemic, let's use the word modern influx of creating this narcissistic personality in general public because of social media. Oh, and just the trend of the time, the love yourself no matter what, or look at all the likes. And guess what? We got a little something extra for you. There's a filter. You can use this filter to not even look like you look, right? So this is what's permeated everything. And it's really creating something I think is going to take a little bit of time to recover from. I think I'm going to close my thoughts there on that.
Yeah. And I had some fitness things to talk about. So this is a good place to just segue into that because I do want to clarify some of my ranting that I did last time, because that's not very helpful. And I want to explain why I was ranting, because for the same reason that I get so mad at the body positive people who are feeding these bad habits and encouraging people to stay down in a bad place rather than encouraging them to stand up and move to someplace better. And that was my rant about this one poor lady who I'm terrible at breaking the ice. I need to find a way to talk to this person and see if I can, sell them on some training, even just a little bit, just to let me show you some things that might work better. This is the person who wears the glute band on the cardio machines. All right. And I was ranting about the glute bands. I was kind of ranting about cardio. You've talked a lot about cardio when you talk about programming. it has its place. It is a necessary component of general, way back on like your first fitness talk where you laid out the
Mm-hmm.
oh,
The
you have
5
six.
elements. I have 6, but
Yeah,
the standard 5 plus mine.
Plus your standard element of fitness, and cardiovascular health is one of those things. The problem with it is that for most people, most of the time, you're either doing too much of it or you're not doing it right, because it's not, it shouldn't be the primary component of your fitness program.
Well, but
Because
let's break it down though, because I think this is why it's such a big sell, right? So let's go with let's start as low resolution as possible. So like a thumbnail photo here, it's easy, right? It's
or at least
easy.
it's not complicated.
Yeah, it's not complicated. Yeah, you strap on a pair of shoes, minimal equipment required. You walk outside and you go for a long walk. That's cardio, right? Which is it has its benefits. My mom has lost so much weight doing her long walks that it's amazing. It does do that. Get on an elliptical. You know what? I got a Planet Fitness membership, $10 a month. I can go get on the elliptical and ride that thing every day. It's not complicated. I don't need to know a whole lot. I just need to know how to start the machine. Sometimes the buttons are complicated. And that's pretty much the same with all of it. Stairmaster, rowing machine, treadmill. They're easy, simple. They're simple, right? Then you've got some truth in the fact that you do get into a better fat burning zone in that time, which we'll go into. We've talked about afterburn and stuff like that, but in that moment you are, which is actually something important to teach your body. Okay. Then you develop good habits. So something simple, you've got a good mentality going into it. You can develop a good habit. It's good mentally because you can zone out. You can enter sort of a trance or a meditation state.
Yeah. Hey, just get a bike and ride your bike while you watch TV.
Yeah, you know? or you can do it while you're distracted. So that was the last one. So the meditative would be the opposite of watching something, you know. So you can have all these benefits, and you can have this distractive effect. You can read a book or something, depending on what you're on. Every once, hey, I admit it, I get on the rowing machine, and sometimes I'll row a 5K, but I'll have a podcast going while I'm doing that. So
you mentioned something else in that about that annoys me, and I think is important to point out, is you talked about the getting your $10 Planet Fitness membership and getting on the elliptical. They sell that. They sell the cardio machines on purpose, because a cardio machine is far more cost effective to a box gym than a weight machine or rows of free weights and benches. Simply, I mean, just look at the space. Walk into any box gym and look at the space. Look at how much space there is, floor space, given over to, say, a free weight area, and then think how many people could actually work out in that area. And now look at I think at the one I go to, there's like 4 rows, and it's a long row of cardio machines. So floor space wise, you can pack a lot more people into a box gym with cardio machines.
Yeah. Planet Fitness is a different beast though, because their business model is based on you not coming in at all. So there is that, but you're right. In the normal box gym model, yes. Floor space, you can pack 20 people in to a space where you could have 5 people working out with weights, maybe. But back to the cardio kind of benefits, those things we brought up. You can do it distracted. You can do it. You get a rhythm. A rhythm is great. Finding rhythm in your workouts is wonderful, and it's easy to do with cardio because all you have to do is find your pace. Right? Yeah. Now, that's great, but it's short-sighted because you miss benefits you get with the other things.
Yeah. as we always say, there are no solutions, only trade-offs. So here are all the benefits of cardio, and here's why this poor lady with the glute band especially aggravates me. You know, and it's not her, it's not her fault, it's not what she's doing. It's just so I'm trying to remember. You had this snarky way of describing cardio to me once of suboptimal muscle contractions through a limited range of motion.
Yes. So that's one of the downfalls of it, right?
Yeah.
So,
And if you're putting on a freaking glute band while you're doing that, you're shrinking that range of motion even more. So
yeah.
why are you going to make the negative more negative? But that's the trade-off to cardio is you're not getting a lot of body movement. You're getting one small movement over and over and over again.
Yeah, and it depends on the apparatus. Like if you're on a rowing machine, you're getting a lot more movement.
Yes. Yes.
Or if you're on a Stairmaster, you're getting a lot of movement in those legs.
You're also getting a lot of resistance. You're getting a lot of work.
Yeah, yeah. And it also depends on your running style. Like one of the things I did for a while was gait analysis. And see these therapists and foot doctors and stuff would send people to my mentor Luke, and then eventually me, and then my partner Brittany and I, and we would basically film people walking, film people jogging from all different angles, and frame by frame it to nitpick every little thing that could be causing whatever pain they're having. And then eventually we got so good at it that we didn't need to frame by frame it. We just would see them going and be like, okay, start writing our notes.
Here's an easy way to self-diagnose, or at least see that you have a problem. And hopefully you can see this. See the wear on my shoe?
Yeah, it's on the lateral edge. It needs to be on the medial edge. Yeah.
It is not, it's all in one spot. And so that is one of my many problems. So check out your shoe treads and see how they wear, and you'll know what Sam's talking about, and you'll see what kind of problem you have.
Mine's not as pronounced because I actually have good flooring in my gym, but you see it's on the medial edge. So this is the inside of the foot, right? Yours was on the lateral edge, the outside of the foot. So these are when I teach athletic movement and sprint mechanics shoes. So what we teach is the backside of the ball of the foot. And you can see it's really hard to see on this camera, but the wear and tear is all right here. And now when you do that in a repetitive state, now it's going to exaggerate any bad habit you have. And I will admit, when I used to try to do more long distance runs, when I got tired, I would shift towards the lateral edge of my foot. And that's what we call skeletal stacking, where the bones of the foot stack to the bone of the leg, which stack to the bone of the upper leg, which stack to the bone of the hip, which is what happens when you get tired, because you start using your skeleton to keep you stable versus the actual muscles. Mm-hmm. But the glute band she wears should actually counter that, though. The problem is dose response. And if you use it when you're trying to correct movement, that's great. If you use it all the time, now we're going to hit a point of dose response where some is good, more is not better, and too much is too much.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember way back early when I just opened my gym. We were doing lateral band walks one day and getting that burn in the side butt, and one of the ladies that was kind of new to the class was like, "We should do this every day." And I said, "Yep." And everybody would know who trained at Real Fitness, because you would be walking through HEB like this. Because
all your clients look like speed skaters.
Yep. With bow legs. Yeah. Anything else you wanted to rant on?
No, just, to put a final point on that is just not to say you're doing it wrong if you're trying to get healthier and you're just, getting on a treadmill and walking for, a half hour. That's good. Especially as a start. Just remember that cardio is an element of overall fitness. It is not the answer.
Well, it's just like your diet. I mean, these things are so similar. You can't just eat meat.
Oh,
You can't just eat vegetables. Sorry, vegans.
oh, good.
You can't just eat. Okay, well, let me break it down to the chemicals. You can't just eat protein. You can't just eat carbohydrates. You can't just eat fat. You need a good blend of all of them, and a little bit different, varying on what your genetic makeup is, what your ethnicity is, how your activity level is, what your goals are. You know, you can vary all of those things, but you do need some blend of all of it. Even keto allows you to have 30 grams of carbs, right? They are there. They are important, and there's actually carbs in meat. So we're same thing with the exercise program. You can't just power lift, or you're going to be one of these 30-year-old broken power lifters. You can't just bodybuild, or you're going to be swole but not healthy. You can't just CrossFit because it's stupid. You can't just run, or else you're going to be one of these twigs that dies when he's 50 because the cardiac system has been overworked for so long and you have no muscle mass.
Yes. People talk about repetitive use injuries and don't think about the repetitive use of the heart when you get up in that high heart rate zone.
Yeah. And if you say, I love running, you know what? Marathons are my thing. I live for them. Okay. So guess what? You can have that. But let's look at how you're running. Do you have a scissor gait? Are you making heel contact? Are you on the ball of the foot? How much vertical motion do you have versus horizontal motion do you have? Let's make your body healthier as you run. Let's add a little resistance training so you have strong bones and a little bit of muscle mass to take you into your 60s, 70s, and 80s. You know, yes, we want you to have this thing that you have a passion about because you're going to be mentally healthy then. Make sure it's a positive passion, not an obsession, right? Or an addiction, right? But at the same time, yes, okay, you can have that. But let's account for all the things that might affect in your life, because it's going to have consequences. Some of them you're just going to have to accept. Your heart is working a lot to run marathons every day. But we can at least we can at least prevent some of the other blood flow issues that are involved with it. So hypertension or something like that, because we know heavy resistance training can actually reduce hypertension. So let's make it easier on your heart while you do it. Let's add a little muscle mass so you don't fall and break a hip when you're 50. You know, let's add some bone mass so you don't break a foot while you're running. You know, let's do all of those other things around it. Okay, you love to power lift. You just that's your thing. You get off to your nose bleeding because you picked up 800 pounds. Well, there's a lot of things we can do around that too. Mobility, that's a huge one. You're going to get stiff. Let's keep you moving well. Let's get you on a mobility program, and let's do it in a way that actually gets your heart rate up for about 20 minutes. So now we can work that cardiovascular system without hurting your powerlifting, because you're not going for a steady state run. So we can account for all those things. It's just no one modality is the answer. And I think that's what you're talking about with the bands. Yeah. Just because bands can be good, don't just do it all the time. I'm trying to think if there's anything in my program that I might overdo, just out of preference. I think I'd probably have to have someone outside looking in to tell me, but I don't think so. I try not to, but if anybody wants to look at my programs and say, you do this too much, I am up for the challenge.
Oh, good place to end it on. Throw the challenge out there. Draw the line in the sand.
Hey, one of my favorite quotes is from Cressy, and it's not a quote; it's a paraphrase, I should say, but it's something to the degree of, if I thought there was a better way of doing it, I would do it that way. and that's exactly the way I feel. There may be better ways, but I haven't seen it, or it hasn't been properly presented to me at this point. Now, there are better ways for certain individuals. I will say that, because I don't always fit into people's likes and wants. And that's a hard thing to do, because one of the challenges, one of the challenges you face as a trainer is fitting what's needed within the wants. And they're both important, because you can't have a negative attitude going into your training sessions. You can have a forced every once in a while to develop good habits, but you can't have I hate this.
Yeah.
Or you're going to have a negative effect. So there is that challenge, and I know I don't float everybody's boat, but that's cool.
I actually had one of those in the box gym I worked at, because mom wanted her to lose weight, and she needed to lose weight, but she got into powerlifting. She was a high schooler, a junior in high schooler, and liked the fact that she could deadlift more than a lot of the guys in the gym, which she could. But there's a big trade-off to that, which was she wasn't as healthy as she could be and needed to be. And so I had to balance she still wants to see those gains in her, in her squat and deadlift. But we need to start working on that BMI.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Now, was she competing?
Yeah, she was on her high school powerlifting team.
Well,
they call it powerlifting.
And this is where I separate sport from health. I try to make my athletes as healthy as possible, but if they are going to succeed at their sport, they have to cross that threshold.
Yeah.
Throwing a baseball 100 miles an hour is not healthy for your shoulder. I don't care how good of a shoulder care program you have. Eventually, it's going to take a toll.
Even if you're a genetic freak like Nolan Ryan, it doesn't happen until you're 43.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Exceptions to the rule, my friend. Exceptions to the rule. But yeah, if you're going to deadlift, I don't know, how heavy was she?
Like, her working weight was like 225. And
no.
How heavy was she?
Yeah. What weight class?
She was about 185, really short. So
okay.
She was like 5'4", 185.
So we would have been trying to get her to like 315, 350, somewhere around there. Yeah, she has to eat. She has to sleep a lot. She has to lift heavy, and there's going to be some wear and tear in the joints. She's going to get very good at that one motion, because we have a nervous system trade-off, because we only have so many synapses in our body and they have to be specific to that motion. That's why they repeat it so much. They typically, you'll lift super heavy one day, have a kind of a moderate day, and then a technique day. And those are all in 1 week. So you're repeating that motion we talked about 5 to 20 sets for hypertrophy, but in strength training, you're repeating that motion for like 30 or 40 or 50 sets.
She's actually a good example of what we've been talking about, now that I think about it, because we're talking about this. Don't get into these ruts and kind of be afraid of these other things. And for high school, what they call powerlifting aren't really power lifts. It's squat, deadlift, and bench press. Okay.
Yeah. Well, that's semantics on the wording. Because yes, you have more power in the Olympic lifts than you do in powerlifting. Yeah. Yes.
Well, so you have to score well in all of them to place.
You can't just be a one-hit wonder. Right?
Her bench press was terrible, because she didn't like to do it because she wasn't good at it. She loved to squat, and not just vanilla squat and deadlift. She liked the variations as well. She liked to put in that heavy work, because she felt good when she pulled that much weight off the floor. She didn't like doing bench press because it made her feel bad, because she had a heck of a time pushing any appreciable amount of weight.
Well, this is a coaching cue I've used. So this, for all the coaches out there, this is a good learning moment too that I've been successful with, is when you're talking to somebody, and this is an easy example because it's one lift out of three, you know, when you're talking to somebody about their weaknesses, first of all, evaluate whether it's something that's necessary to improve to a large degree. But in that case, again, it's an easy example because she has to be good at all
Yeah.
three lifts.
Yeah.
You get them into a mindset of thinking how they're going to feel when they're good at something they couldn't do well before. So you take them out of the moment. It's not even just trust the system, or, you know, try to progress properly. Just get them in that moment of, when you hit this number that seems elusive to you, how good are you going to feel? Now feel as good as you are there. And people can create emotions within their own mind. And when they feel that for a second, then they're more likely to buy into the process. And this is something, one of my successes in training is actually been taking people who hated exercise programs, period, and actually getting them to love, and almost too much love, exercise programs, especially with the ladies. And it's not pulling teeth at first. It's kind of just developing a mindset of, think how good you're going to feel when you can do this.
And then finding those baby steps where you can,
And then finding the baby steps where you can remind them that you're almost there, or you're getting there. And
and
then
the
they come
person
tell
can
you,
actually see that progress.
and then they come tell you the stories. They're like, hey, I loaded all the cases of water into my grocery cart when I couldn't even pick up one before. Normally I had to ask for help, and I didn't have to here. And so then they start telling those stories, and they start reinforcing for themselves, and your work is almost done there. You just make sure they keep improving at that point. And that's a little art of coaching 101 there.
20 minutes after the fact, that's actually a good place to end it on, because that's one of, if not the hardest part of fitness, whether it's, whether you are coaching someone or you're self-coaching, is finding those reasons and ways to get yourself to do the work. So find those things that are going to make you feel like you've accomplished something.
Well, and a lot of times it's
work
not
towards those small steps.
Yeah, it's a lot of times it's not the initial thing that they come in with. It's not I want to lose 20 pounds for this reunion coming up. A lot of times it's all the underlying factors that cause them to gain the 20 pounds in the first place. And so when you start being able to identify those, and this is where I love one-on-one coaching versus this internet world we're in, because I have, average client is an hour. I do some 30-minute sessions here and there, but average client is an hour. And realistically, you can't work at a 1,000-calorie pace for an hour. Not many people can do that. And so you do have a lot of downtime, and learn as a coach when to interject conversation where it's not distracting to what you're doing, but it actually helps you get insight. And so let me think of a good example. You use your knowledge in the beginning to kind of break the ice. So someone's doing a set of squats, and they finish their set of 10 or whatever. You may notice one or two things they need to work on there, but instead of saying, well, push your knees out and don't let your heel come up or whatever, and say, was there any pain there, or where did you feel it the most? And when they say, oh, my quads, and then there was a little bit in my knees, be like, okay, because so I saw your heels came up. If you keep those heels down at this moment, then it's going to put a little less pressure on your knees. And tell me how that works in the next set. And so when they do that, they're like, oh, I didn't feel anything in my knees that set. It's like, okay, so when you were doing this, before? Was that what was holding you back? And then you can kind of build that rapport. So you're not just throwing knowledge at them. You're asking them to ask you for help, basically. I help people who help themselves, but you have to kind of encourage them to help themselves and let them tell you what their body is telling them. Because the one thing about coaching is you can watch the form all day, but you can't feel what they feel.
Yeah.
And that's one of the mistakes most trainers make is we talk about with knees over toes and stuff like that. They don't account. They just have a textbook idea of what it's supposed to look like, but you can't feel what your client feels. And that's a good, at least that's my approach to kind of developing that rapport. Anything you want to add to that?
Nope. I think it's a good place to leave off. And
yeah, we actually did good on time. We're going to be like just at an hour and a half. That's not bad.
Lots of ranting at the beginning, but then lots of good tips at the end for helping people go out and be healthier.
Well, it's just funny because it was all related. And it was the mental to the physical, but it was all connected. So that's kind of cool. And I'm glad we did this one, even though we originally kind of were just free flowing.
Yeah.
But that was a good one. No standard disclaimers, no medical advice. I'm not a doctor. I cannot treat nor diagnose injury. If you have an injury or feel like you do, go to your doctor. Anything else? We did not give any election fornication advice. We did not give any.
Oh dear.
We did not give any injectable materials advice. Oh my goodness. We're gonna do Wheel of Time next time.
Site, so that's dangerous. Yeah, I want to get back into that to parent storyline because it's so great and there's so much to talk about that we've already kind of
and I like that we get topics out of it because it was a little bit of serendipity that the verdict came out right after or right before we started talking about Zareen.
Yeah.
And then gosh, he's such a deep character that we're going to get so much out of it.
Yeah.
I do need to do my bone density thing coming up. So if you want to do that next time, I'll get my notes in order.
Get your notes in order. We should talk about that next time because that's a big thing.
Yeah, and it's really close to the hypertrophy stuff. It's just different names of different cells and chemicals that are involved. So I'll get that all together. Any other topics you want me to be putting together? We talked a lot about a body comp with hypertrophy and fat loss. So do you want to just start going through the other elements of fitness?
Yeah,
cardiovascular health, muscular endurance, the muscular strength.
Yeah, we should do that.
Okay.
Good place to go.
All right. We'll see y'all next time. Like, subscribe, and tell your friends so we can have 49 instead of 48 subscribers again. We keep going from 49 to 48 and 49 to 48. So someone likes us for a moment up periodically. So
that's something.
Later.